18-year-old Theo Hayez from Belgium is arguably the most well-known backpacker to travel to Australia. It's for all the wrong reasons, though. 3 years ago, he vanished in Byron Bay. His disappearance was completely out of character. 1 minute he was here, the next, nothing. Speculation about what might have happened to Theo has been intense, but an endless number of theories have all led nowhere. As you'd expect, his mum is heartbroken. She's desperate for any information. So to help, tonight we've asked former homicide detective Gary Jubilan to retrace Theo's last known steps in the hope of finding new clues about this nightmare in paradise. Backpackers have been drawn to the beauty of Byron Bay on the New South Wales far north coast for decades. But now this surfing mecca has become synonymous with the baffling and heartbreaking disappearance of Theo Hayez, the 18-year-old from Belgium who mysteriously went missing on a night out 3 years ago. Back in Brussels, his distraught mother, Vassiane Delforge, just wants to know where her beautiful boy is. Do you ever think you will make sense of what happened to Theo?
No, I don't understand. It's so impossible for me.
This is the last image of Theo as he walks off into the night, never to be seen again. Knowing where he was. Now, using critical GPS data collected from Theo's phone, we retrace his confounding steps, minute, by day and by night. It is a different scene by night, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in both Australia and Belgium, we have a team of experts examining the evidence.
The last point, which is at Cozy Corner, but it's really, really dangerous and difficult, especially at night.
The police believe Theo died alone and through misadventure by falling off this headland.
It's really hard to believe that he decided to climb there at night.
But now, an alternative. The case for why Theo's death should be treated as suspicious.
I am convinced that he was not lost.
I don't believe that he came down here on his own.
When Theo left Belgium to backpack through Australia in 2018, he was up for the adventures ahead, whatever they may be. In a country so vastly different to his own, he relished the chance to work and play. But he was always coming home, a promise he made to his family the day he left.
Il m'avait promis qu'il reviendrait.
Theo promised me that he would come back soon.
Yes. He wanted to come home. For Theo's younger brother Luca and his mother Vassiane, the heartbreak is wrenching. Their loss is still so raw.
Faire une pause.
Can we have a break?
Yes, of course. We'll get you a tissue.
Yes.
As difficult as it is, Vassiane has agreed to speak publicly for the first time, in the hope someone somewhere knows something about the whereabouts of Theo, who she so happily waved off 3 years ago.
Je pensais que l'Australie était une destination sûre.
I really thought Australia was a safe destination, but I had warned him not to jump on rocks from cliffs and to be careful not to fall into the sea.
How did he react to that? What did he say?
Il m'a dit que
So he told me that he would be extremely careful, that he would always calculate the risks. He would never jump off a cliff.
Never.
Never.
By all accounts, Theo was a sensible, smart and curious young man who loved nature. His journey started in Victoria with his devoted godfather, John Philip Pector, fondly known as JP, and wife, Julia Malcolm. What was your reaction when you learned that Theo was coming to Australia to travel, to spend time with his godfather.
A lot of joy. I was really happy to show him around and welcome him to our home and spend some time with him. It was really like having a son with us.
Oui. Moi je m'appelle Théo et je viens de Bruxelles, j'ai 18 ans.
This treasured travel diary has never been shared before. In it, Theo is glowing about Australia.
Si c'est juste la beauté des paysages, on peut trouver ça aussi. Donc c'est un peu... C'est un petit mix de tout, j'ai envie de dire. Ouais, donc opportunité.
And he was clearly having a wonderful trip. Theo eventually arrived in Byron Bay on the 29th of May 2019, checking in to the Wake Up Hostel. Byron would be his last taste of Australian sun and surf, as he was just days out from heading home to Belgium to start an engineering degree. Do you remember the last message you got from Theo?
Oui. Je me souviens que...
Yes, I do remember. He was very happy. He was also looking forward to coming back home to see his family again, because he was looking forward to organize a welcome home party with his friends.
But then 5 days went by without word. Vassian alerted JP, who initially thought Theo might be out of phone range.
So Vassian contacted me with a little message saying, "Oh, I haven't heard from Theo from a little while. Do you have any news from him? Nothing too alarmed. Just, do you have any news?"
But JP knew something was terribly wrong on discovering Theo hadn't checked out of his hostel and had failed to make the bus he'd booked to leave Byron.
He had a booking to go to Sydney from Byron Bay, and that he didn't show up to that booking. So that was the critical moment where we say, hang on, that's not normal.
When you heard that news, what was your level of worry then?
Là, j'ai vraiment senti que...
I really felt that
que ma vie basculait.
my life would change forever.
You knew then?
Yes.
What is confounding about this case is how little we know, but what we do have tells a lot. Former homicide detective Gary Jubilan is helping us examine the mysterious last steps of Theo Hayez, a young backpacker who vanished from Byron Bay in June 2019.
That last text message, we know he's got the phone there, but we don't know what's happened after that.
Quite extraordinarily, without knowing it, Theo was leaving us a precise digital trail, his phone automatically recording his last movements through GPS data. These blue pins capture his every step. Even the speed he was walking is known, up until his sudden disappearance. Tonight, we retrace Theo's final footsteps. The only evidence that is reliable in this case is the GPS data.
Yeah.
The curious and tragic disappearance of Theo Hayez began just 2 days after he arrived in Byron. It was a Friday night, the 31st of May 2019, and Theo and a group of fellow backpackers were out at a bar called Cheeky Monkeys. All right, so here we have, he arrives at Cheeky Monkeys at 9:35 and by 11:03 he's asked to leave.
Yep.
They'd been there for 2 hours when bouncers targeted Theo, claiming he was, to use their words, approaching intoxication. But he'd only had 2 beers, his last an hour earlier. He only had 2 drinks. He's not intoxicated,
and
is
we've
he?
got the benefit of seeing the CCTV footage as he's walking out, and he didn't look intoxicated.
Kicked out of Cheeky Monkeys, Theo was banned for the night from any other establishment and separated from the only people he knew in Byron. He was now all alone. So this is the first time he stops to check directions for the Wake Up Hostel. Yeah. Using the GPS data from his phone, we can create a detailed timeline and map of his movements. On leaving the bar, Theo heads away from his accommodation, the Wake Up Hostel, despite searching its location in Google Maps.
There's this assumption that he may have headed off in the wrong direction. I don't subscribe to that. I think he checked it 8 times that we're aware of. I think he was just keeping his bearings.
Theo's godfather, Jean-Philippe Pector, agrees Theo knew the direction he was taking, but had chosen a parallel path to get back to the hostel, which would bring him onto the main beach, where he would turn left to get back home.
Easy, like probably a nice way to walk home. So we think that it's probably what he had in mind when he went that way.
But in walking that way, Theo comes across cricket nets, which are considered to be in the dodgy part of town, located near a youth activity centre and the mini tent city of Byron's homeless community. Instead of walking past the nets onto the beach, as might be expected, Theo stops for nearly 7 minutes. So he goes from Cheeky Monkeys, and the theory was that, if I just bring this down a little bit again so you can see, that he was planning on, he took this route to hit the beach and head back home.
Yep.
And that was a common thing to do. But something happens here at the cricket nets. During his time at the nets, he doesn't use his phone. What he does is anyone's guess, but this is the spot where it seems Theo's plans drastically change. Gary believes Theo met someone here who convinced him to head in the opposite direction to his hostel. But what happens? Something happens here.
Well, I keep coming back to he's met someone. And I look at all the reasons why he might spend 7 minutes here, and I can't for the life of me think other than he's speaking to someone.
Who? Who could it be?
Someone that he's felt comfortable with. Like, you wouldn't stand in this environment if you didn't feel comfortable. You'd bypass the person.
After those 7 minutes, we noticed that his walk became like he started walking again, but in a decisive walk, quite fast, but without running, crossing the field, so the opposite direction from his hostel, towards Talos Beach.
Tallow Beach is about 5 kilometres from home. What Theo was thinking is impossible to know, for the journey he takes to get there is baffling. He doesn't put Tallow Beach into Google Maps, and yet he takes the least obvious route to head there, through suburban streets until he reaches this obscure access track to the beach's national park, somewhat hidden between houses.
There was no hesitation in the speed that he comes to the end of the road and then walks straight off into the bush.
Because when you do look at Google Maps, he hasn't put Milne Track in.
Yeah.
He's not searching for it. It doesn't come up.
No.
It's not a place where you've got signs lit up, this is the entrance for the park. It's really like a side entrance. From there, it's even darker, like there's no clear path.
A stranger to this place, and yet Theo takes the bush track without hesitation. It's easy to see why Theo's family, like Gary Jubilin, believes it's inconceivable he walked this path alone.
Brings it home very clearly when you come down here at night that someone walking along here on their own late at night, I don't get it.
So we have the benefit of these.
We've got these torches and it's still difficult.
Yeah, and from the phone data, he was walking so much faster than we are.
Yeah. So he's walking with purpose and walking, with confidence. He doesn't know this area. Can you imagine walking through bush like this late at night?
No. You look at the maps and he doesn't have to do this. You know, this is the opposite direction to the one he should have been going in.
Yeah.
It's a daunting walk at 11:30 at night, the time Theo was here. But seeing the same path by day leaves you just as bewildered. Local volunteers who in those early weeks searched for Theo are helping us retrace his digital footprint because no track appears on Google Maps to show us the way. Inexplicably, again in the pitch black, Theo deviated from his path to head to the beach through the scrubbiest of bush. It's where he loses his much-loved baseball cap. I mean, I can understand how it gets knocked off in this kind of bush, but he doesn't pause, he just keeps going.
Yeah, there's no pause in the data.
If you're following someone and you lost your cap, you might leave the cap.
So you don't lose the person who's leading the way. The volunteers conducted their own line search of the bushland and incredibly found the cap lying here on the ground the very day after police called off their official search for Theo. What was it like to come across something physical of Theo?
I think it was unbelievable in the beginning because it's the only piece of evidence that's been found, so it was quite a profound moment for everybody.
Does that make this a profound place?
It makes it a heartbreaking place because it was one of the days that Theo's parents were at the car park meeting everyone for lunch, so they came here and, seeing them stand over the hat was heartbreaking.
I mean, this is something you can touch. Theo was here and he's not here anymore. The disappearance of Belgian backpacker Theo Hayez from Byron Bay in June 2019 has sparked plenty of speculation. His baffling last steps, each coordinate captured by his phone, has led some to believe the 18-year-old was under the influence of drugs, which he might have bought at an unscheduled 7-minute stop at local cricket nets. Not only would that be out of character, but the path Theo took to get to a beach 5 kilometres from his hostel was too precise to stumble across. According to Theo's godfather, JP, Jean-Philippe Pector, and wife Julia Malcolm, the unusual route meant Theo had to be with someone who knew the place like the back of their hand.
It's nearly impossible that he would have done that without being guided.
And not under the influence of drugs.
He wasn't meandering through the bush, wasn't lost through the bush. You know, he came out at a specific point in the bush. It doesn't seem like behaviour as somebody who's completely lost their bearings and their senses.
It was now close to midnight, and without hesitation, Theo makes his way up Tallow Beach towards what is known as Cosy Corner, and Byron's famous lighthouse that sits atop the Cape Byron headland. Strangely, given the darkness of night, without pause, Theo veers off the beach into a clearing in the bushland. According to former detective Gary Jubilan, this is yet another confounding move. When you're there at night, you don't know. You don't see this little offshoot here, do you?
No.
To be able to see the place, we visit in daylight. It's a known spot for beach parties, which Gary believes could have been how Theo was lured here.
This clearing area, as I understand, is an area where people gather, have parties, and as you can see, it's a perfect area.
But then the GPS data tells us Theo went further, up into the bush, where he remained for 5 minutes.
He's gone up that incline there, which is rather steep, and you can imagine being here at night. I've had a look up there and there's thick bush like lantana, you can't get through it.
Local police believe, lost and desperate, he was likely trying to find his way up to the lighthouse.
He's sort of hit a wall. If he was trying to get back onto a street or get home, maybe he's gone up there and realised that he can't get through
But Theo then returns to the beach to Cozy Corner at the base of the headland, where he switches off his GPS data, possibly to save phone battery. He then replies to old messages from family and friends. It's clear he's not distressed, there's no indication of being lost or scared, no cry for help. He even starts to watch a favourite Belgian comedy show on YouTube. You know, we have the last words of Theo Hayez. The red is Theo.
Yeah.
At Cozy Corner, this is what he's saying and doing at this point.
What it jumps out to me, it's almost like he's filling in some time. He's responding to old messages. He had a look on YouTube. Like he's got time to kill.
At 1:02 a.m, Theo was calmly sending what would be his final text message via WhatsApp to fellow backpacker and friend Loic Spice. Loic recalls their conversation as a relaxed chat about the surf in Byron Bay. What does it tell you about his state of mind when he
wasn't in any kind of distress, he wasn't in any kind of weird situation. From what I can see in the text, I think there was nothing weird about the text. Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary in my opinion.
The last GPS data shows Theo sitting on this rock on the beach just after 1 a.m, something that haunts those who love him, his Australian-based godfather, JP, and wife, Julia.
Roughly towards that big rock there where the GPS location was turned off.
That tells you that Theo, or at least his phone, was here.
Yeah.
But then, maddeningly, nothing. From here, Theo vanishes.
We ask ourselves, would he have gone up there? Did he meet people here? We just, we have no answers.
And the biggest question of all, what happened next?
Yeah.
The police theory is that sometime after sending his last text message, Theo decides to climb over the headland to get home. Here at night, with so little visibility, it's hard to imagine anyone would make that choice.
See those imposing, it looks like a mountain from here. It just does not add up.
For Theo to take such a risky course would have him ignore the darkness and clear directions to turn around and walk back down the beach to get home. If we actually did look at the phone right now, what does the map tell him?
Have a look. 56 minutes to walk.
Proceed to Cozy Corner Trail.
So it's saying go back there.
Go back, yeah.
But it's not saying go over Cape Byron.
No, definitely not.
You can't see anything out here. What happened to the poor kid?
It makes no sense. He's come down here on his own. If he was having an episode or was tripping on drugs, perhaps acting irrationally. But we come back to the text messages. He's not being irrational. He's controlled, he's considered in his responses and the way he's dealing with things. So he's down here with someone and something's happened.
Byron Bay police believe in the middle of the night and all alone, 18-year-old Theo Hayez tried to climb this headland, accidentally fell into the sea and was swept away. Former detective Gary Jubelin believes that theory is flawed.
Look around here. What is an 18-year-old kid doing down here on his own? It just does not add up.
Gary is convinced the young Belgian backpacker was led down here by someone else. So if Theo did come down here with someone and yet no one has come forward, are you suggesting foul play? Could it be an accident?
It could still be an accident. It could be something happened that he ran away from the people and an accident. So you can't discount anything. But
Gary also finds it difficult to accept that if Theo did in fact fall while trying to climb this headland, that he'd land in the water or close enough to be swept away. It's more likely he'd land on rocks and his body would be found.
I don't know about you, but I'm looking at those cliff faces and you come off one of those, the cliff, you're not going straight in the water, you're hitting rocks.
What do you believe has happened to Theo?
Moi, je pense que Theo a fait une rencontre.
I think that Theo had an encounter with maybe many persons. I also believe that he didn't feel the danger immediately, but something has happened. But I know that he was not alone on that
Que
night.
Theo était seul ce soir-là.
At the time, there was no way Vassiane Delforge could have known her son was in trouble. She only raised the alarm with Theo's godfather, JP, Jean-Philippe Pector, after not hearing from Theo for 5 days. JP was horrified to discover Theo had missed his planned bus trip. His belongings were still at the hostel, and his last bank transactions were at a bar called Cheeky Monkeys a week earlier. And so, on June 6, JP reported Theo missing to the Byron Bay police, and a frantic search began.
Today, Theo Hayez was supposed to be flying home to Belgium.
Search efforts were today ramped up. The fear grows for his family.
We lived on adrenaline for weeks, not sleeping, wondering, always, trying to find out what could have happened, what could we do, and nothing could distract us from anything else, like nothing else matters.
Back then, little brother Luca desperately believed Theo was still alive.
Je me disais que il allait nous appeler pour nous dire que il est arrivé.
I was really thinking we would go to the Brussels airport to pick him up and that he would probably give us a very good reason why he hadn't given us any news, so I really couldn't believe that something bad had happened to him.
When you came to search for Theo here in Byron, what was it like for you to tell his parents that you couldn't find him?
I think from the start, and we will find him. I was driving at night time to see if he was like roaming around or I don't know, and then seeing some young man that looked like him, that had the same smile, stop my car in the middle of the road, run towards that, and then heard a really thick Australian accent out of that young man's mouth, and that's not Theo.
Here in Belgium, police were also called into action. The Belgium Missing Persons Unit activated their own file on Theo, creating a mirror case to the New South Wales police investigation, gathering as much information as they could to share with Australia. It was now an international hunt for a young backpacker who at this stage had vanished without a trace. For the first time, the Belgian authorities have allowed access to Theo's file. When you got the call that Theo... Chief Inspector Philippe Perard was in charge of the investigation in Belgium. You have your file on Theo.
Yeah, this is the beginning of the file. It is...
And from day one, he shared the family's deep concern.
The parents are always worried for their kids, but there are different levels of worrying. And
how would you describe her level?
High. With a lot of concern also because it's far away.
Inspector Perard made the frantic dash to Australia with both Theo's parents, Vassiane and Laurent Hayez. They knew time was against them, and the key to unlocking Theo's final movements was accessing critical data off his phone. Laurent Hayez making this desperate plea.
It is vital that investigators get access to Theo's WhatsApp account without delay.
Theo's family was frustrated and shocked by the lack of investigative power of police. Hindered by privacy laws in missing persons cases, police couldn't access Theo's GPS data and so had no clue where to look for the missing backpacker. It came down to Vassiane to make the biggest breakthrough in the case when she managed to work out Theo's password to his Google account.
En Australie, ils ne savaient pas où ils devaient chercher.
In Australia, they did not know where to search. I tried to remember Theo's passwords, and I eventually found it. So this gave us access to his Google account and to many other tools, such as the geolocation tool.
So that was the key to following Theo's path?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you did not provide the password, would you know where Theo went?
I don't think so.
And it's the only thing that we have, really.
When you've been told, no, we can't access it for legal reasons, then as a family to crack it, that must have given you a lot of hope.
Yeah, for us it was really big, and all we got as a really precise and valid information is through that Google account and the location points. So that's incredible.
So the red dots here, what do they indicate?
This is the information that has been given later on by his Google account.
Unlike Australian police, Belgian authorities can access social media accounts almost immediately, something Detective Parade considers essential. Was there one specific limitation on the Australian police that surprised you?
Into the communication. Regarding missing person, they can't go as quick as we go.
By the time they retrieved Theo's GPS location, 10 days had passed since he was reported missing, and 17 days since he'd walked out of Cheeky Monkeys. So much time had been lost. But Vassian believes police had already dismissed what happened to Theo as an accident.
Moi, je pense que la police s'est très vite
I think that the police stopped very fast and decided that it was the theory of the accident that was the correct one. And today I see that the police did not explore additional possibilities.
Plus de possibilités.
Those possibilities include investigating the known criminal element in Byron, those living off the grid in the homeless community, and a more thorough examination of the beach party scene. As well, Theo's family believes instead of following the precise GPS data, Australian police depended on other less reliable mobile phone data to conclude Theo had accidentally died trying to climb the lighthouse headland.
But what we don't know is if the phone and Theo had been separated.
Relying on telecommunications data connecting Theo's phone to 2 different Telstra towers in the area, police say Theo's phone moved up the headland sometime after 1 a.m. The data shows the phone didn't make it to the top, and so it's assumed neither did Theo. But phone pings can be terribly erratic, depending on signal and atmospheric conditions. And experts concede it's not an exact science, with a variation or margin of error of 78 metres. It's an important point to make too, isn't it, that the experts say that even though the phone was picked up by a separate tower, suggesting that the phone was closer to it on the headland, that may not be true, that the phone may not have moved at all from Cozy's Corner.
Exactly, and people with the expertise acknowledge that there's a variation and it can't be said 100% that this is what's occurred.
Can you see beauty in this incredibly sad place?
Yes, definitely. It's such a beautiful part of the world, and there's no way we cannot be touched by it. What's happening is a nightmare in paradise.
The phone data continues to confound everyone, because even though Theo stopped texting at 1:02 a.m, his phone continued to intermittently ping until after 1 p.m. that afternoon, meaning it could not have gone into the water when local detectives presumed Theo did. Despite extensive searches here, it's never been found. In your heart, do you feel Theo came up here?
I don't think so. I don't think he would have climbed at night. It seems so irrelevant also to take those efforts and risks to to get to a point which was so easier to get to on the road. Like it doesn't make sense.
Vassian was told by police in those early days they believed Theo had died by misadventure, indicating to her the narrow focus of their investigation. But more devastating to Vassian now is that she accepted their theory, despite the actions they described going against everything she knew her son to be. She feels she let Theo down.
J'avais du mal à penser que Theo aurait
I couldn't believe that he would have been alone walking on this trail in the bush all by himself. But on the other hand, this theory was probably the most acceptable to me because it was the least horrible one.
Horrible.
Without his body, Theo's case is steeped in speculation. But now, analysis of the unique ocean currents that night could shed light on this terrible mystery. The Saurian forest on the outskirts of Brussels has a special place in Vassian Delforge's heart. She would walk these woods with her son, Theo Hayez, before he left to go backpacking in Australia in November 2018.
Yes. When Theo leaving for Australia, I'm coming here to pray for my son. I'm asking at the universe to protect him. I want to believe that.
Tragically, Vassian's prayers weren't enough to protect her son. Now she struggles with her new life, that he will never come home. A reality first flagged by police 6 weeks after Theo was reported missing. What was your reaction when you learned the Australian police were ending the official search for your son?
I was really under shock and I had no reaction at all.
Just a feeling of numbness?
And I know that I was totally unable to think.
With no sightings and no body, police declared their search over, convinced Theo had fallen off the headland and was swept out to sea. Dr. Colette Carey, a physical oceanographer, expert in drift analysis, agreed to examine the conditions and the currents on the night Theo disappeared. If he's fallen off the headland, do you believe he's landed in the water?
Well, it's hard to see how he would have landed in the water, given that the headland's not particularly steep, but I can just say that if he did land in the water, there is a high probability that he did get swept out to sea, yeah.
Where would he have had to fall to be washed into the ocean?
I'd say between 1 and 2 metres above the waterline, so quite close to the water.
Colette is also a Byron Bay local and surfs at Tallow Beach every day.
We have a notorious rip current that runs off the southern side of this headland here. That rip current would have been present.
If Theo was caught in this rip, he would have most likely been swept out to sea and eventually trapped in the East Australian current. On the night Theo disappeared, that current was unusually close to the shore and was fanning out both to the left and right of the beach.
So a drifting body really could have been swept either to the north or to the south.
So where could Theo's body have been found? How far north, how far south?
So if he'd gone north, he could have gone up towards Brisbane and then been entrained in the southward flow, which then heads down towards Sydney, and it forms these sort of rotating bodies of water that we call eddies, and things can be entrained in those for many months, either heading eastwards towards New Zealand or south towards Tasmania.
Perhaps the only certainty is that the ocean is unlikely to ever give up its secrets, something Theo's godfather, J.P. Pector, and wife Julia are not yet ready to accept. Do you think you'll ever find out?
We cannot give hope. Whatever that answer would be, even if it's an horrible answer, I think it would still be better than not knowing.
But Vassian accepts she will have to stop searching if she is to survive.
Si on veut, on va dire, continuer d'avancer,
If you want to go on living, there is a time when you need to stop. There will always be sadness till the very end of our life, till the last day of our life, but it is maybe healthy to stop searching.
And you have said that you still feel Theo?
Oui.
And that he is sometimes unhappy with you?
Quand
Theo is unhappy when I'm feeling sad.
je sais que
I also feel that Theo is giving me strength, such as today.
So he's always with you?
Yes.
After all this time, so are the volunteers, still committed to finding out what happened to Theo.
Hello, darling.
Their compassion and determination not lost on JP and Julia.
Where is she? Hello, darling.
Or Vassian, who's eternally grateful for their dedication and love. A love for a boy they never met, but so desperately wanted to find.
Et je dis souvent aussi que
I lost a child, but I have found a new family in Australia.
The focus now is on the findings of the coroner, to be handed down in the next few days.
We have heard a great deal of evidence presented, with some evidence particularly difficult to hear.
The inquest has examined whether the police investigation at the time was adequate and looked at recommendations for legislative reform, so potentially life-saving personal information can be accessed by police investigating missing persons cases. Theo's cause of death is also the subject of the inquest. Will it ever be solved?
I like to think that all mysteries can be solved, and that might be the detective in me. It's a difficult one.
For former homicide detective Gary Jubilant, there are 4 theories of what happened to Theo that will most likely be addressed.
Did he commit suicide? Nothing in the things that I've looked at is suggestive of that. Did he deliberately disappear? I don't think so. There's no indication whatsoever to support that theory. So then that leaves you with death by misadventure, or there's something more sinister and someone else might have knowledge or involvement, whether that's a deliberate act or an accidental act. They're the 2 things that you're left with, death by misadventure or someone involved in it.
And what are you leaning towards?
The evidence that's presented that I've had access to is suggestive of the fact that he was in company with someone. It concerns me that if he was down in Cosy Corner with a person, that person or persons haven't come forward. So I'd be looking for those people. I would be treating as suspicious circumstances.
What do you expect the inquest to tell you about what happened to Theo?
Unfortunately, I think that we will never know. But I hope our situation, our story is helpful to others, to other parents who are going through the same situation. I think that Australia needs to be better equipped to address those situations of missing persons.
There is a $500,000 reward on the table to flush out anyone who may know something about Theo. An offer the Missing Person Advocacy Network is spreading far and wide.
Someone have any kind of information that someone would decide to talk, even if they feel that they shouldn't for whichever reason. That's our best hope at the moment.
Si c'est ce qu'on cherche en Australie, c'est le contact humain, on peut les trouver. Si c'est l'argent, on peut le trouver. Si c'est juste... Puis j'ai travaillé pour l'Australian Open, ça c'était vachement bien. On peut trouver ça aussi.
Is it okay watching this? Yeah.
I like to look him because he's so happy and alive.
He's got such a great smile.
Yeah.
Ouais, là j'ai bien travaillé donc.
I like to hear his voice.
For now, this devoted mother is focused on supporting Luca, who still struggles with his loss.
Ici, c'est sûr que
I miss him a lot physically, but I know that he's always looking after me and he's always with me and always in my heart.
It was here at this local bar in Brussels, Theo farewelled his mates in 2018. Now those friends gather, laughing and sharing anecdotes.
I think that's one of the things where Theo inspired us. It's like with his smile and his love.
Very mature.
Sounds like a good friend.
Yes.
I'm so happy to see them, all the friends, and it's so grateful to speak about Theo.
Are there words to express the pain you feel about Theo?
It's unfair. It's unfair. I think no one deserved that. No one deserved that.
How do you live with not knowing?
Je crois que
I look to the future and I move forward one step at a time, day by day. I really need my life to have a purpose now, and I always need to do things that have a true meaning for me.
It must be very hard. You make me cry. I'm sorry.
Le cerveau, enfin notre cerveau.
But here this is extremely particular because there is no body. I think that there is still a tiny little window open, and because of that there is still some hope.
Still some hope he comes home.
I don't think so.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes, segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.